Good morning, Glendale. This is the time and place for the Planning Hearing Officer hearing for June 1st, 2022. My name is Roger Kiesel, and I will be conducting the hearing as hearing officer. The Planning Hearing Officer meeting is being broadcast live on Glendale TV, viewable on Spectrum Cable, Channel 6, and AT&T UVerse, Channel 99. Meetings are also streamed live in high definition on the city's webpage, glendaleca.gov/live, on youtube.com/myglendale, and on Apple TV, Roku, and Amazon Fire devices using a free app called ScreenWeave and choosing Glendale TV from the menu. Meetings are also archived on the city's website for viewing anytime at glendaleca.gov/agendas. For public comments and questions during the meeting, please call 818-937-8100. City staff will be submitting the questions and comments in real time to the appropriate person. We have one case on the agenda this morning involving a density bonus application. The hearing will proceed as follows. I will read a description of the application and/or request. I will read the reports received from other city departments and other letters or communications from interested parties. The case planner will make a brief overview of the case, giving analysis and make a recommendation. The applicant will then be connected. Well, the applicant is here. The applicant will then state both their name and address and will be asked to present the case within a 15-minute time period. Others in support or in opposition of the application and interested parties will also be able to speak, giving their name within a 3-minute time period, both in person as well as over the telephone. Finally, the applicant will be given the opportunity to make closing comments if desired in response to testimony given by preceding speakers within a 5-minute time limit. The hearing will then be closed and taken under submission. Findings. If the findings presented in the application and at the hearing meets the required findings set forth in the municipal code, then the project can either be approved or be approved with conditions. If the findings of fact are not evident, then the request will be denied. A decision. After the hearing, the decision will be prepared in writing and will be in the form of a letter sent to the applicant and to all persons who responded to the public notice, either by speaking at this hearing or by submitting written responses and have provided their name and mailing address. The date of the decision will be the date appearing on this letter. Records of decisions for all projects will be posted online on the Planning Division's website. Appeals. Under the appeal provisions of Title 30, Chapter 30.62 of the Glendale Municipal Code, the decision may be appealed to the Planning Commission within 15 days of the date of the decision. Anyone wishing to appeal must contact the case planner to obtain forms and information regarding the appeal process and submittal. Public notice. Notification of this hearing was accomplished by the use of public notices, which were mailed to property owners and occupants located within 500 feet of the subject property, physically posted on the site in question, and placed in the local newspaper. I would like to inform everyone that the official proceedings of the Planning Hearing Officer's hearing are being televised live and may be viewed online on the city's website. Now we'll go down to the actual hearing. Again, as I mentioned, there's one case on the agenda. This case is located at or to be located at 246 North Jackson Street. It's density bonus project PDBP 2120753. The project description, it is an application of a density bonus pursuant to the state density bonus law and GMC 30.36 to construct a new 9,760 square foot, 3-story, 11-unit rental housing project, with 1 unit being reserved for very low-income households, and with a request for 2 incentives and 2 waivers. The 2 incentives are for additional height and stories and reduced setback. The 2 waivers are for increased floor area ratio and decreased unit size. The project also qualifies for reduced parking, inclusive of guest and handicap spaces, and again is located at 246 North Jackson. And that concludes my brief overview of the case. Let me read comments from other departments. Okay, it looks like Public Works just has their standard comments. Urban Forester is requiring the planting of 1 new tree on North Jackson and 3 on East California. Glendale Water and Power looks like standard comments. Fire Department, automatic fire sprinkler system, which is a standard comment. Building and safety. Looks like standard comments. Housing has comments regarding the density bonus request, its background, and code, California code sections. Traffic engineering. The applicant will need an approved construction traffic control plan during construction. And that was it for comments from other departments. We did receive 3 or 4 letters, I should say, or communications from interested parties. One comment letter was concerned that the project would block their view and lower their property values. The second comment letter was regard to just with the increase in people, the city will become more noisy and polluted. The crime rate will go up, and more trash on the street, etc. Concerns about the increase in density that this project will have. The third letter is this person expressed concern for the reduced parking. They live close by and are worried about their visitors finding a place to park, and are concerned that the new residents of this building will also need to park on the street because of the reduced parking. And we do have a fourth letter, and I'd actually like to have the case planner for the project, Cassandra Pruitt, give us like a brief summary.
The fourth objection letter basically objected to the CEQA exemption determination and also the density bonus request, including the incentives and waivers.
Okay. Thank you very much. All right, now I'd like to ask you to just make a brief overview of the case, give the analysis you made, and the recommendation. Thanks, Ms. Pruitt.
You're welcome. Good morning, hearing officer and members of the public. My name is Cassandra Pruitt. I'm a planner in the Community Development Department, and I will summarize this density bonus review project, including the incentives and waiver requests and the parking concessions. The proposed project includes demolishing the existing two-story multifamily building that has 3 units and building a new 9,760 square foot, 3-story, 11-unit apartment building with 1 unit being reserved for very low income households. The existing apartment building is not identified as being historic, and there are no indigenous protected trees on or within 20 feet of the site, and the project is exempt from California Environmental Quality Act review as a Class 32 infill project, of which further information can be found in Exhibit number 6 of the staff report. The project qualifies as a density bonus project under state law because it provides more than 5% of its units as affordable. Specifically, it provides 14%, or 1 unit. Under state density bonus law, the project automatically qualifies for a 46.25% density bonus for the number of dwelling units, which allows the project to have 11 dwelling units. The project also qualifies for reduced parking and potentially other incentives and waivers for relief from code standards, as I'll describe later in the report. The subject site is located in Glendale's City Center neighborhood at the southeast corner of East California Avenue and North Jackson Street, and adjacent to an alley. The subject and surrounding sites are all zoned R1250, which is the zoning designation for high-density residential development, which is equivalent to 1 dwelling unit for every 1,250 square feet of lot area. This is an aerial view of the existing site. The existing multifamily building is located here, and the new proposed building is located across the site. In terms of covering the entire lot area?
Right. The only development is in that, I guess it would be eastern portion.
There were some permits for, I think, a single-family home and a garage at some point
Oh, okay.
elsewhere on the site. Okay. The site plan features underground parking access along Jackson Street with ground level building access along California Avenue, with landscaping along the street sides and additional landscaping and common open space at the rear of the building, as you can see in green on this slide. And as you can also see, the building's pushed out to the street along California Avenue, but stepped back further along the other sides. The underground parking garage features 14 parking spaces, 9 which are accessible and 5 which are tandem, and also 4 bicycle parking spaces, elevator access, and various rooms for trash and equipment. The first floor plan shows the same features as site plan, but it shows the room layout and the elevator access. The second floor plan shows a somewhat smaller building outline compared to the first floor, which reflects the increased setbacks as the building height increases. On the third floor plan, there's a large common area open space, a rooftop deck, located here. And this is the roof plan that shows where rooftop equipment will be located. And the gray areas are actually not part of the roof plan. They're open to below. So this helps you see how the massing is decreasing as the building height goes up. The elevations further show the variation in building height, as you can see along the top of the building, and the general massing of the building. These are the north and south elevations here. So this is the elevation that you would see from California, and this is what would be facing the apartment building to the south. These are the east and west elevations. The east elevation faces the alley, and the west elevation faces Jackson Street. This is a bird's eye rendering showing the overall massing of the building with varying heights, facade planes, setbacks, etc. This view is taken from the intersection looking southeast. So this is California, and this is Jackson. And this view is pointing northeast from the south side of the building. The driveway entrance to the subterranean garage is located at the lower left, which faces Jackson Street. And this is the rooftop deck area that I had mentioned earlier. The surrounding buildings near the project site are 1- and 2-story multifamily buildings, with the immediately adjacent building shown on this slide. The hearing officer already summarized the comments received from the other departments. To reiterate, most of them were standard comments received for similar projects like this. A couple notable comments were for the applicant to provide a street dedication at the corner for an accessible sidewalk ramp and 2 new street trees. In terms of parking, per state density bonus law, the city shall not require parking spaces in excess of 1/2 parking space per unit, inclusive of handicapped and guest parking, if the project is located within 1/2 mile of a major transit stop and there is unobstructed access from the housing development to that stop. A major transit stop is defined as the intersection of 2 or more major bus routes with a frequency of service interval of 15 minutes or less during the morning and afternoon peak commute periods. The applicant has demonstrated the project qualifies for this parking standard because the project is located 0.4 miles from the intersection of North Glendale Avenue and East Broadway. And at this intersection, it's served by the B-Line Route 4, which runs north-south and east-west between the Glendale Galleria and the Glendale Transportation Center, which is the central transportation hub for the city of Glendale, and Metro Bus Route 180-181, which is a regional route running primarily east-west from Pasadena to Hollywood. Both lines have a service interval of less than 15 minutes during peak commute periods of 7 to 9 a.m. and 4 to 6 p.m. Therefore, under this parking provision, the project is required to provide 6 parking spaces, which equates to 1/2 space times 11 unit is 5.5 rounded up to 6. The project is providing more than the required parking spaces. It's providing 14 total, 9 of which are accessible and 5 which are tandem. And in addition, they are voluntarily providing 4 bicycle parking spaces.
Ms. Pruitt, so the 0.5 parking spaces required by the state, that's for all the units. It's not just the affordable unit, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
The application request is for density bonus review to grant incentives and waivers from code requirements in exchange for the provision of affordable housing. The difference between incentives and waivers is the required findings of fact. For incentives, the city must grant the request unless it can prove certain facts are true. For waivers, the city must grant the request if certain facts are shown to be true. So the density bonus request includes two incentive requests. The first is to allow the project to exceed the maximum code allowed height and number of stories, specifically 37.5 feet and 3 stories, whereas code allows 26 feet and 2 stories. The second incentive request is to provide less than the code required minimum and average setbacks, primarily for the underground parking level and street setbacks. The underground parking level is required to have a minimum 20-foot street front and 5-foot street side setback, whereas the project proposes to provide a 4-foot and 4-inch street front setback and a 4-inch street side setback. For the above-ground setbacks, the project proposes a street front setback of 20 feet on the second and third floors, whereas code requires a minimum of 23 feet. For the above-ground street side setbacks, the project proposes a 4-foot setback, whereas code requires 5 foot on the first floor, 8 foot on the second floor, and 11 foot on the third floor. The setback averages are similarly several feet short of the requirement. For the interior setback, which is the side that faces the adjacent apartment building, only the second floor on the south side doesn't meet the required 8-foot setback. Instead, it has a 5-foot setback. The density bonus request also includes two waivers. The first is to allow the project to exceed the maximum allowed floor area ratio, proposing a floor area ratio of 1.32, which is 9,760 square feet, whereas code allows 1.2, which is 8,904 square feet. The second waiver request is to provide less than the minimum required unit size, proposing 2 units with 768 square feet instead of the code required 800 square feet, and 5 units with 574 square feet instead of the code required 600 square feet. Per density bonus law, the department is required to grant the incentives unless it can make written findings based on substantial evidence that any one of these 3 conditions are true, as summarized on this slide and more fully described in the staff report. The applicant has provided information that the requested incentives for increased stories and height and reduced setbacks are required in order to allow additional buildable area to provide more units that would reduce cost to the developer of providing the affordable unit and thus make it financially feasible, as well as provide more parking on site, which improves the viability and marketability of the project. Without the incentives, the applicant would not be able to provide the additional affordable unit. The project doesn't appear to have a specific adverse impact upon the public health and safety or physical environment because the existing buildings to be demolished aren't identified as historic resources. The project is exempt from the California Environmental Quality Act, and it is designed to comply with the city's various municipal code standards relating to public health and safety. Further, certain setbacks of the project actually help offset the increased height and stories and reduce setbacks. Although the requested height is 37.5 feet, the predominant building height is actually 35 feet, which slightly reduces the overall massing. The reduced setbacks are mainly on the street-facing sides, which aren't adjacent to other buildings and therefore allow more space, light, and air. The building also uses a variation in massing and materials to help reduce the apparent size of the building. No known state or federal laws would be contrary to the granting of these incentives. Therefore, there is no substantial evidence that the findings of fact can be made, and therefore the incentives must be granted. In terms of waivers, per density bonus law, the department shall grant the request for waivers if it can demonstrate the findings are true as summarized on this slide. The applicant has provided information that the requested waivers for increased floor area ratio and reduced minimum unit sizes are required to allow provision of a more balanced unit mix that will improve the project's financial plan and allow the creation of an affordable unit. Specifically, these waivers allow the project to feature 1 and 2 bedroom units instead of studio and 1 bedroom units, without which the project would not be financially viable. Therefore, without these waivers, the affordable unit would not be able to be provided. The project doesn't appear to have a specific adverse impact upon the public health and safety or physical environment or resources. Because the existing building to be demolished isn't identified as a historic resource, the project is exempt from CEQA, and it's designed to comply with the city's various municipal code standards relating to health and safety. Further, the increased floor area ratio is somewhat offset in the same way as the height in stories, by the fact that the building is on a corner and adjacent to an alley, which allows more space, light, and air between it and nearby buildings. Ample interior setbacks have been provided next to the adjacent building, and design features of varied massing and materials help minimize the apparent size of the building. The reduced unit sizes are also minimal, varying just 4% from the required size. No known state or federal laws would be contrary to the granting of these waivers. Therefore, it appears the findings of fact can be made for the waiver requests. Because the findings of fact can be proven in favor of the applicant's request, staff's recommendation is to approve the project, and you have already summarized the public comments that were received. Thank you. That concludes my presentation. If there's any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Thanks, Ms. Pruitt. Could you go back to the slide? It was early on. It may have been the first floor plan, and there were areas of green on the site, but they were all different. This one, what do the three different greens represent? Do you recall?
That's a good question. They are all landscaped areas. The light green, I know, are planter beds. The dark green at the corners, those are not planter beds. The area at the rear, the dark green.
Does it have anything to do with common open space, or that's okay?
It's a good question.
Okay. The second question I had was, has this project been preliminarily reviewed and gotten input from the urban design studio?
Yes, we've been working with the design studio throughout the development of this project, and it will go to a design review board hearing.
Okay. And I'm assuming since it's at this point where urban design is reasonably satisfied with its design?
We have fleshed out a lot of the design to get it to be in compliance with the design guidelines as much as we were able to do, and
okay,
we'll be taking it to the design review board hearing.
Okay. Great. Now I'd like the applicant to come up and make a presentation. Mr. Simonian.
Good morning, Mr. Kiesel, and thank you, Ms. Pruitt, for a wonderful presentation. I'm Art Simonian, and I'm part of the applicant team. My offices are located here in Glendale. The subject property is located at 246 North Jackson at the southeast corner of Jackson Street in California. The project is located a short walk from the Glendale Civic Center, and it is in close proximity to the city's transportation transit routes. There's a mix of uses surrounding the property, as already been indicated, but it'd be important to point out that there are churches very close by. There are 4-story multifamily buildings very close by, such as, across the street, retail uses, and of course, the 4-story Glendale Unified School District building located just south of us, about 100 yards south on Jackson. The project is located 0.4 miles from the intersection of Glendale and Broadway, and this is the location of the city's Civic Center, and it's also the intersection and will serve as the future BRT station, which will connect North Hollywood to Pasadena. And it would also connect the project site to the overall LA County Metro and Amtrak systems, and that is very important to point out. It's also important to point out that this BRT station and project has been approved and it has been funded. And so it's certainly going to happen in the very, very near future. As was indicated by staff and was illustrated with the building elevations, the building design is very light. The California Avenue facade is divided into an A, B, and a C motif. The middle building portion consists of a distinct look with varying roof heights. Furthermore, the building has an abundance of facade undulations and building materials. The project consists of 3 different common open spaces and will provide separated common open spaces with different amenity packages for the tenants. We've noticed a lot of people are working from home, and so the idea was to incorporate 3 different common open spaces into a very small project to provide for that privacy, which I could pinpoint. I think one of them, you were asking about the different colors of the landscaping
Right.
of the first floor plan. And so the dark green on the left side is the on-grade landscaping. And so based on some feedback from staff and also the urban design studio, it was important to pull the parking garage back from Jackson and also from the corner to provide for on-grade lush landscaping. And the lighter green are planter boxes, and those are also placed there because of the urban design studio's comments in integrating landscaping along the Jackson and California right-of-ways.
Is there a reason why those areas can't be in-ground if the...
Yes, and so as previously indicated, we're providing 8 more parking spots than is required. And so we've pushed the parking structure closer to the Jackson property line.
Oh, okay.
But what we've done is, with an added cost, and it's a big cost to the project based on feedback from the urban design studio, we've lowered the podium of the entire project to allow for landscaping along the California right-of-way. And then we further dropped the front setback in Jackson and that landscape area to provide for 24-inch landscape planters. The dark green are LID planters, possibly. If we could use a drive well in the very corner, then those LID planters will drop in height. If not, they will be higher in height and could accommodate larger trees, et cetera.
And is that the area that you're sort of the olive green color?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. And so the 3 common open spaces are on the right side, at the southeast corner of the property. As you can see, there's amenities there with workstations, et cetera. There's a very small private common open, not private, common open space, but it's intended more for quiet use in the middle on the south side. And of course, as staff pointed out, on the 3rd level is really the main common open space. And on a similar note, the right-of-way is located along Jackson in California, along with the alley to the east, provide an abundance of relief to the project. Because we're blessed with a corner, and so the reduced setbacks aren't as much of an issue because of the Jackson and California and alley right-of-way abutting our project. And as already been previously mentioned, the 3rd floor relief provides for light and air onto the south property. I have some details or color I could add to the concessions and waivers if you'd like me to, or if you have specific questions, I could address those specific questions.
Okay. Are you done with your just overview presentation?
Overview presentation is complete.
Okay.
And I could focus in on the concessions and waivers if you so desire.
Sure. A couple things before that. What are the floor to ceiling heights on each of the floors?
I need to get back to you on that, but I believe they're 9 foot clear. 9 foot clear.
Was there any discussion of making those slightly lower to lower the overall height? I mean, it would still obviously be above what our code requires, but...
Correct. There is some room to lower those. I'm being hesitant because in these tight infill projects with the amount of mechanical, electrical, and plumbing, also with fire sprinklers that run through it, it gets very difficult to have that clearance. And so it becomes an art of trying to fit everything in within inches.
Okay.
But if we would like to lower the height, I think we could start working with the parapets as an ideal idea of lowering some height. We've integrated varying parapet heights as we could put up the elevation, and we've done that to screen the HVAC equipment and also the future solar equipment. But there's some room there where we could drop those a bit. But the way the facade is laid out now with the roof heights, it actually works well.
Okay. Cassandra, can you put up one of the elevations, maybe the California elevation? Oh, that's hard to.
Yeah.
So,
And so the middle
There's-
portion, yes.
sorry.
That's all right.
There's a potential opportunity to reduce parapet heights to reduce the overall height of the building. Would they then not shield the rooftop equipment as well, or is there's still some wiggle room in there that would do their job to shield the equipment, but also maybe reduce the overall?
Very good question. Ms. Britt, do you have those three-dimensional models that you could put up by any chance? I'm not sure if they were part of your presentation. Perfect. If you would, go back to this one. And so, Mr. Kiesel, if you would notice the middle portion on California, which is closer to you,
Yeah,
those parapets have been absolutely dropped to the bare minimum.
yeah, I see that.
And when I mentioned the A, B, and C motif, the ends, we've raised those parapets a few feet, but at the same time provided railings as a relief. So if you look at it closely, you'll see railings within the parapets. And we've moved the HVAC equipment closer to the edges. Now, can we lower those parapets? Absolutely. But what we'll need to do is screen them with metal screening, and that is more unsightly than the articulation of the building, in my opinion. But we would, if that's something that the city desires or the Urban Design Studio desires, we could absolutely work with them on that.
Okay. I had a question about the common open space, but I think you addressed it. Two on the ground level, the first floor.
And the third would be
Right,
where-
actually, I guess, keep the slide up. The one, it was a small common open space right where that door is toward the driveway. Is that,
Yeah. If I may, we have detailed landscape drawings.
Okay.
Which show the common area amenities.
okay,
Is there a way we could put the landscape drawings up by any chance? Sheet L1, L2, L3? They were the last few pages. Well, they would be part of the drawings that were uploaded on the city's website.
why don't we do this?
I have hard copies if I could show.
You can do that, but if you can put up the first floor plan, that would be great. Okay, so Art, could you come up and show, just point the two areas of the common open space? Because I think I know what you're referring to. It's. Got it, okay. Yep. Okay. Yeah. Okay, that's, okay. Right.
Third floor is this entire area on the third floor. We've gotten rid of this unit.
Yeah,
And made this entire area common open space to allow light and air onto the building to ourselves.
got it, okay.
When he stands over there, there's no sound coming through.
Oh, sorry.
There's a wireless mic, if you want to do that again.
Okay.
Just real quick, thanks. I didn't consider that.
We're so used to the other room, right?
I know.
Where the drawings are up and it's easier.
Can,
Yes, please, yeah. Oh,
is it on?
There seems to be a button at the bottom. Maybe that doesn't.
vote?
No. Ms. Pruitt, can you maybe just summarize what Mr. Simonian said?
He was talking about, I was moving the mouse here, he was
Yeah.
talking about there being common open space in this area and a
Right.
small amount here.
Okay, and that small amount was for a quiet area for conference calls, and that's what Mr. Simonian said. So
Okay.
just to,
Right.
and then there is one on the third floor, which I was clear on, so. Okay, if you could go over each concession and waiver and just sort of point out where they're being requested, et cetera, I think that would be helpful. And then, Ms. Pruitt, if you could sort of follow along with, you know, the floor plan or the elevations, just to make it as clear as possible, that would be appreciated.
Okay. And so the applicant is seeking approval for 2 concessions. These 2 concessions are necessary in order to make the project affordable. And the 2 concessions are an increase in maximum height and stories to 37 feet and 6 inches measured to the top of the elevator shaft, and also a reduction of the minimum setbacks. We're also requesting 2 waivers, one for the minimum unit size requirements of the city of Glendale, which is very unique to the city of Glendale, and also a waiver to allow an increase in floor area ratio.
The minimum unit sizes are the ones that are unique to Glendale, is that what you said?
Correct. So we have a municipal section in the municipal code that indicates 2 bedrooms to be 800 square feet and 1 bedroom to be 600 square feet. In the worst case, we're only deviating by 4.33% from that threshold. And it's interesting to point out that the requested waiver in minimum unit size requirements is required to allow relief to provide a more balanced unit mix to allow the creation of affordable units. The requested slight waiver from the minimum unit size requirements will allow the creation of 1-bedroom units versus studios. It will also allow the creation of 2-bedroom units versus 1-bedroom units. The requested minimum unit size waiver will provide the creation of a greater number of bedrooms that will reduce the cost of providing affordable units.
So are all the 1-bedroom units slightly smaller than what our code would otherwise require?
Not all.
Not all.
And as was previously indicated, not all.
Okay.
So
Sorry, I
I
didn't
could go
catch
into
that.
which units, but in general, the 1-bedrooms are slightly less, as was indicated, and the 2-bedrooms are slightly less, 4.3% at its worst deviation.
Okay.
In regards to the FAR waiver, the requested waiver to exceed the FAR maximum is necessary to accommodate added floor area in order for the project to achieve a more balanced unit mix. The additional FAR results in the addition of 2 bedrooms to 6 of the project's 11 units. So that slight FAR waiver allows 6 of the project's units, 6 of 11, to be 2 bedrooms versus 1 bedrooms. If the project would have complied with the FAR maximum of 1.2, the project would be penalized with not only smaller residential units, but also a project consisting of all 1-bedroom units. The FAR allows for a more balanced unit mix, and as indicated, 6 2-bedroom units and 5 1-bedroom units as a result of this slight waiver in the FAR. Similarly, the increased FAR of 856 square feet, which is minor, allows for the one very low-income unit, affordable unit that we're providing to be a 2-bedroom unit versus a 1-bedroom unit. And so the creation of an affordable unit to accommodate a larger family. As a result, the strict application of the FAR development standards will negatively impact the financial pro forma and the viability of the project, and also the strict application of the FAR development standards will preclude the construction of an affordable 2-bedroom housing development unit. That is some detail on the waivers, and I could provide similar feedback on the two concessions as well for height and also.
Okay. Yeah, can you just, maybe, with Ms. Pruitt's help, just sort of outline where particularly the setback deviations are, given that the height is pretty easy to see?
Correct. And if we could maybe put up well, I think this is the perfect diagram for what we're discussing. The feedback that we've received from the urban design studio, which was spot on, was to make sure we're creating landscaping along the right-of-ways of California and also Jackson. And that directly relates to the parking structure design and how it's situated onto the site. Our codes have a 20-foot front setback for the parking garage. However, in our case, that setback is reduced to 4'4", but also increases at the corner. And so we've pulled it back 4'4" to provide for on-grade landscaping, but more importantly, we've dropped the slab in that front setback, and so we're providing additional parking, even though we don't need to provide it, along Jackson in order to provide less of a problem for the neighborhood. And so it's already impacted, and why add to that? So we're spending more money, providing more parking, and we're lowering the slab. And so although we're asking for this concession, we've designed a project around it so you can't notice it or see it from the sidewalk because the slab is lowered. And also, concurrently, it provides for more parking, which is a huge added benefit.
Okay. Ms. Pruitt, could I ask for your help? On the North Jackson side, those light green areas, yeah, right there. That is in a planter area because below that is parking.
Parking, correct.
Correct? Okay.
And that area has been lowered an additional 1 feet in addition to the already 1 foot that the slab has been lowered. So it's lower 2 feet in that light green setback area on Jackson from the alley.
Okay. Got
Because
it.
the site slopes 2 feet from the alley to Jackson.
Okay. All right. Yep. Thank you.
And so that, in that previous plan, the tandem spots on the left side of the parking garage is exactly where that slab is dropping. And so we could easily not provide those parkings, provide the 20-foot setback at a garage level, but we would have less parking and more of an impact to the neighborhood. And that we didn't think that was responsible.
Okay. On the second level, where are you deviating from setback standards?
It might be easier to break it down between the interior south and the street side north and the
However you
interior.
want to do it, yeah.
Okay. And so on the building, ground level, along Jackson, we meet the 20-foot minimum on the ground level. However,
Actually, Ms. Pruitt, can you go back to the first level? Sorry. Okay. This is the
first
floor that
level.
you're, is this the floor that you're referring to right now?
at the moment, yes.
Okay, yeah.
And so on the left side, the front setback along Jackson, that is a 20-foot minimum setback. And so there's no deviation there on the minimum. On the upper levels, which would be level 2, which would be the next slide, I assume, the second and third floors, it does meet the average front setback requirements, but we're short on the minimum because of the wedding cake design concept of the development standards.
Yeah, it looks like that. If you're looking along Jackson, the bedroom pops out a little bit.
We've created undulation
Yeah,
in the
is that
facade.
is that the minimum deviation? Okay.
Correct. And
But
so-
the average is okay because it goes all the way back to that middle unit.
Correct. And so there's deep relief. And so the averages of the upper levels are met, whereas in the minimums deviate slightly. On the interior south setback on the second floor, since we're talking about the second floor and that's where we're at, we have a minimum of 5 feet, an average of 11 foot 10 from the standards of minimum of 8 feet and an average of 11. So again, we're above the average, but we're shy of the minimum.
And again, it looks like it's because of that middle unit.
It's the middle unit, and what that affects the project on the first 2 levels, but on the 3rd level, we've pushed it back and provided the common open space to provide for light and air into the building to the south. So we've minimized the impact because it just occurs in that middle portion. And it's important to note that, as you could see in this floor plan, there is a walkway down the middle, interior corridor, I should say, enclosed. At some point, that corridor was placed along the northern setback. So there were no planners, but the walkways were open to the sky on the north setback area. However, and for all the right reasons, staff and the urban design studio said per the design guidelines, we should provide landscaping there along the right-of-ways. And so as we provided landscaping there, that circulation element moved to the interior, the middle portion, and therefore it pushed the building farther north and farther south and resulted in the deviation in the setback minimums.
Okay.
On the north street side setback, on the second floor, we have a minimum of 4 feet and an average of 7 foot 8, where code dictates minimum of 8 and an average of 11. That is the most restrictive area, but fortunately, we have California Avenue as a right-of-way, and so there's plenty of relief, and we're not infringing on any neighbor's light and air. And so as the design team, we figured it makes sense to shift the mass of the building closer to California to reduce that setback and increase the setback on the south side where there's a property abutting us on the south side.
Okay.
And there are no requested waivers, concessions for the interior east setback along the alley because we're sitting farther than the requirement.
Okay.
And so in conclusion, this location is an ideal location for an affordable project since it is very walkable, it is close to transportation and transit stations. This location is close to the employment centers, and it's close to shopping and to other city amenities, and is located within the city's bike lane network. The project will serve as an ideal analog for future affordable projects, and it will be a positive addition to our city of Glendale because we're providing more parking than is required, even though we're within a half a mile of a major transit stop. This concludes our presentation, and we are, of course, available to answer any questions you may have and any questions that come up as the public provides additional comments.
Okay. One last question. Have you had a chance to look at the draft conditions of approval?
Yes.
Do you have any concerns or questions about them?
Nope, we thought it was well-written, very concise, and we could integrate all those conditions into our project.
Okay. Ms. Pruitt, do we have any callers that want to speak?
We do, at this time, we have one caller.
Okay. If you could get them through, that would be great.
All right. Good morning, Catherine. You are live on the air with the Planning Hearing Officer. Please make sure to state your name, and you have 3 minutes to provide your comments. Catherine, are you there? She was on hold for 20 minutes, so,
We can give her some time.
all right.
As long as, are we doing everything properly there? It looks like?
I believe so.
Okay.
Oh, hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now. Thanks for your patience.
Thanks, sorry, they were having trouble transferring me. Hi, my name is Catherine Yurka, and sorry, I was a little flustered by trying to get through. So I know that no one becomes a planner to rubber stamp projects like this one, and that you all are not the people who set policy. But Glendale residents are very tired of projects like this and the way the city processes them. And these are simply giveaways to the developer. The city council voted months ago for reform on how density bonus projects are handled, including a menu of concession options based on Pasadena's, with very clear instructions to staff. It was designed to avoid messes like this one. And I just want to know why those reforms haven't happened yet. The new owner of this 3-unit property seeks to add 7 market rate units for a total of 10 market rate and only 1 affordable. Staff claims that the financial viability of this project depends on blowing away more than a dozen of Glendale's development standards does not stand up to scrutiny. And I'm assuming you acknowledge it doesn't stand up to scrutiny because there's no evidence. The staff report mentions pro forma a couple of times, but where is it? Where is the evidence that the waivers are necessary for this project? I count 5 concessions, not 2. In addition to the increase in height, the applicant is requesting a decrease in setbacks, quote, on all sides, street front, street side, interior, and underground parking. Each of these requires a variance to Glendale's building codes. These should not be treated as one concession. Furthermore, every waiver on unit size is a separate variance. Why are 7 variances being treated as one waiver? The staff report says several times the waivers from development standards, quote, will improve the project's financial pro forma. It is not the city's job to improve a developer's pro forma, and that is insufficient for a finding that the waivers are necessary. There is absolutely no evidence to suggest that a project of 10 one-bedroom units is not financially viable, making it possible for the developer to create, quote, a balanced unit mix to make more money with more two-bedroom units is not.
I'm sorry, Ms. Yerka, could you repeat that last part? You were breaking up.
Oh, I'm sorry. So the staff report talks about the waivers being necessary to, quote, improve the project's financial pro forma. It's not the city's job to improve the pro forma. That's insufficient for a finding that the waivers are necessary. And just there's no evidence to suggest a project of 10 one-bedroom units is not financially viable. And I'll just leave it at that. I hope you will not approve this project. Thank you for your time. Bye-bye.
Thanks. Ms. Pruitt, do we have any other callers?
Not at this time.
Okay. Great. Mr. Simonian, you have, I'm sorry, 5 minutes if you want to speak regarding the caller's concerns, or there was something else you wanted to just follow up with. Do you want to do that?
Thank you, Mr. Kiesel. Again, this is Art Simonian, part of the applicant team. And before I address that, and I'm wondering if I could just get a clarification. You asked if we had reviewed the staff report and the conditions. We've reviewed the staff report, but I didn't notice the conditions that were there. It was findings. And so maybe if I could get some clarification, and if I'm missing it, I would like to take a quick peek at them.
It was actually, Exhibit 6 included draft findings of fact, as well as later on, the draft conditions of approval.
I'll take a look at it real quick. And so,
The last couple pages.
okay, as I could answer the questions as a rebuttal, or I could, if I'm wondering if we could take maybe a moment or two for me to quickly review these.
Sure.
But in regards to the project, its location and the waivers and concessions, everything is per state code. What Ms. Yurka was referring to is the fact that staff made a presentation to the City Council some months ago about the on-menu items. Staff received some feedback. Staff is working on that process. And in regards to this project, even if those items go into effect, it still would not affect this project, the way those are written. Mm-hmm. And so we defer on that comment. In regards to the findings, et cetera, I'll take a quick look at them, and if I may just take a few minutes to summarize, and perhaps we could do that quickly.
Sure. Okay. Yeah, why don't you do that? And actually, we do have another caller. So while you're doing that, let's listen to the other caller.
Okay.
Thanks.
Good morning, sir. You are live on the air with the planning hearing officer. Please make sure to state your name, and you have 3 minutes to provide your comments.
Thank you very much. My name is Herbert Milano. I'm a multifamily property owner. My property is about 1 block away, close to Kenwood in California. This particular site has been a blight for many decades, and I applaud the idea of someone coming in to develop this site. It's really needed. But I just took a look today at the massiveness of this presentation and this proposal, and I'm aware that the waivers and concession might be approved, but I have a significant problem with the little setback that has been approved or is being proposed. This area is a medium density area, and it would easily hold maybe a building of 8 units, perhaps. But the massiveness and the frontage of this thing is just not in line with the character of this particular area by any means. And I think that any additional encroachment into the sidewalk as we reduce the setback is a significant visual detriment. I would suggest for the planning officer to reconsider and consider making amendments to this particular project. I applaud the developer and the architect, but really the massiveness needs to be changed, and that's my opinion. I hope you will consider it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, Mr. Simonian, any questions, concerns about this? The conditions of approval, and you've got a brief amount of time to respond to this latest caller.
Thank you for providing me with that opportunity to review it. The Exhibit 6 is fine. It's well written. The applicant has no issues with it.
Okay.
In regards to what was stated previously, as I indicated, there's a 4-story building across the street from us. It's a multifamily building located at the northwest corner of Jackson and California. 2 buildings north of us on Jackson, so 2 properties north, and perhaps staff could put up the aerial that was part of the presentation, is a 4-story building. Just south, so if you look at this site location, on the northwest corner of Jackson and California is a 4-story building. On the right side of Jackson, on the east side of Jackson, north of California, is another 4-story building on north of that property, correct. Across the street from us is a church, which is on the bottom right of the drawing, which has height. Just south on Jackson, if there's another aerial looking south, is the Glendale School Board building. 4 stories with a massive commercial parking lot. And so this is in the urban center of our city. It's within walking distance to a future BRT station site. This is where you want density. This is not the site to scale back your density, but we've done it in a very reasonable way. We're not going above 3 stories, and even on the 3rd floor, we've completely pulled back, created a courtyard, and we're sensitive to the context. One of the speakers said we're encroaching on the setback on all sides. That's not true. On the east side, we're not asking for any deviations. And so
That's the alley side.
that's the alley side. And as previously indicated, and as you could see in this picture or aerial, the right-of-ways along California and Jackson provide abundance of relief. And so you design a building that's undulated, that has facades that move in and out, has varying roof heights, and have materials that wrap around the corners consisting of different materials. Those are all part of our design standards. Those have all been integrated with a lot of effort into this project. And this serves as a good example of a multifamily project located in the downtown area of our city that is going to be served with the BRT station. And I also disagree with the comments that have been made in that there's a big difference when you provide a 1-bedroom unit for the very low income versus a 2-bedroom unit. We are in dire need of affordable housing. And if we could provide a 2-bedroom for a family versus a 1-bedroom, I think it's worth it based on the design that's been incorporated into this project. And so we're proud of this project, and we look forward to further fine-tuning it with the design review board process, working with the urban design team, with staff, and of course the community as well. Thank you.
Okay, great. With that, I think I will close the public hearing. So this hearing is officially closed. I am going to take the case under submission, and thank you, applicant team, for showing up, and thank you to the callers and the letter writers for writing in. Thanks. This hearing is now closed.